Hey, fellow travelers, Mark.
And Rob from Trip Hacks DC. And today we're going to tell you about what you should eat when you come to Washington, D.C. Now, there are a lot of great restaurants here, Michelin star restaurants, award-winning restaurants, but there are also some international cuisines, some local foods, and some other things that you might want to try when you're in D.C.
And Rob does a really great job of categorizing these into kind of three groups: the international food, the local food, and then the food that people
associate with DC, but you can kind of get it anywhere.
Yeah, and so I think the one that got us the most, the one that I've loved the most, is the international cuisine here, because there's people from all over the world live here in DC and eat here in DC, and they brought their food here. But the two biggest ones you really have to have, one is Ethiopian food. If you've never had Ethiopian food, I'm sorry, because it's amazing. And yes, it is one of the foods that you don't use a fork with. You actually tear this spongy bread. You might get the lamb stew, or you might get some of the veggie stuff and you eat it up. We had it with the kids. They love it. And now anytime we go around the world and we see an Ethiopian restaurant, we eat there because of here in DC. The second international food, which is really here as well, which another place that we loved as a family when we visit that country, is Salvadorian food. Pupusas, they're not tacos, people. Salvadorian food, it's not Mexican food. It's so much more, a lot more fish. The pupusas, which is kind of like two tortillas with masa, and then there's stuff inside. It's so good. And that's another thing you can get when you're here. And there's tons of other international restaurants. But I think when people watch videos on what to eat in DC, they want to know more in your second group. What are those things that are truly DC originals?
Yeah, so the DC originals, as you could say, there's a few. The most popular one is the half smoke. And we don't really know how the half smoke got its name. There's a bunch of different theories, but it is basically a sausage on a bun. So it's better than a hot dog. It's a type of sausage. And the most famous half smoke is at Ben's Chili Bowl on U Street. And you can get your half smoke with chili on it, or if you're like me, you get it without chili on it. But that's a very DC food that you can get while you're here, is the half smoke. And the second one is wings with mumbo sauce. And if you haven't heard about mumbo sauce, don't worry, it's very specific to this area. It's also very hard to describe because every restaurant has their own recipe. So it's not like Heinz ketchup, where no matter where in the world you go, it always tastes the same. Every restaurant has its own recipe and is going to taste a little bit different. But the key is that if you want to have wings with mumbo sauce the authentic way, you've got to get it at a Chinese carryout restaurant. Sounds a little bit different, a little bit out there, but you go to a Chinese carryout restaurant, you get your wings with mumbo sauce, either with fried rice or French fries. And that's how you enjoy wings with mumbo sauce in DC.
That's awesome. But what about all these other things I see around that are supposed to be from DC, like was it the jumbo slice of pizza or something?
Jumbo slice pizza. This is one that I don't personally like. It is typically considered a bit of a drunk food, and that's why many of the jumbo slice restaurants are in areas with a lot of bars, and why they do most of their sales on Fridays and Saturdays after midnight. But if you are going to engage in that sort of thing, you might want to try out a jumbo slice piece of pizza while you're here. Another one is cupcakes. Cupcakes got huge. There used to be entire shows on the food cooking channels about cupcakes and the various cupcakeries across the country, and they got really big here in DC too, but really you can get cupcakes anywhere nowadays.
Yeah, and I think another one that's like a lot of times it's actually seafood here, like the crab cakes and stuff. You have all kinds of seafood that you can get anywhere, but it's really good here.
So I consider crab to be the Maryland food.
Yeah.
And crab cakes and crab and oysters and Chesapeake Bay, things from the Chesapeake Bay, those are Maryland's, and we're not going to try to take them away from them, but we're next door neighbors to Maryland, so we have a lot of great Maryland food here in DC.
So those are some things you can eat when you're here, but there's also some advice we have for you when you do want to eat here in DC. One thing is take advantage of the happy hours to save money on the drinks, because it's expensive to eat here no matter when, so use those happy hours to help you out.
So my personal favorite types of restaurants are fast casual restaurants, and these are a step above fast food, but you're also not going to be sitting down and eating with a server serving you. But I really like some of them, like Kava for Mediterranean food, or Takorean for Korean and taco fusion, and there are so many of them here in DC, and that's one of the things I really love about DC, is that we have probably more fast casual style restaurants than anywhere else.
And that's going to help your budget too, quite a bit.
And you don't always have to eat at those fast casual restaurants. Washington, D.C. has a surprising number of award-winning restaurants, Michelin-starred restaurants. And sometimes, if you want to eat well, you just have to splurge. And guess what? It's worth the splurge.
Oh, yeah.
But if you're going to go to one of those award-winning restaurants, you've got to have a reservation. You can't walk up and expect to get in without one.
Yeah, so thank you, Rob, for helping us out. Tell them how they can find you.
Trip Hacks DC here on YouTube and triphacksdc.com if you want to find out about guided tours and more. And I'm sure Mark and Jocelyn will be generous enough to put links to all of those in the video description.
So have a great time here in DC, and we'll say bye.